Hey guys, it's your girl Duana here, and I'm here to share my sew along for my Ada Peplum and dress pattern. This is one of my favorite patterns. I love this pattern. If you're new to sewing and you want to challenge yourself a bit, this pattern is perfect. You'll need to apply a zipper, you'll need to add buttons, and guess what? If you don't want to do buttonholes, you don't have to. You can just do the non-functional button option. This pattern has so much versatility. You can do short sleeve, you can do long sleeve, you can do a peplum, you can do a dress. It has it all. I am so excited about this pattern. So without another second to waste, here is my sew along for my Ada Peplum and dress pattern. All right, let's get started with what we need. You're gonna need fabric. You're gonna need fusible interfacing. You're also going to need a 14 to 16 inch invisible zipper or a regular zipper and some buttons. Let's take a look at the pattern pieces. This is pattern piece number 1. This is the bodice front, and you're going to cut 1 on the fold. This is pattern piece number 2. This is the bodice back, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. For view A and B, this is pattern piece number 3. This is the peplum front, and you're going to cut 1 on the fold. If you're doing view C, the dress, this is pattern piece number 3. This is the dress front. You're going to cut 1 on the fold. For view A and B, this is pattern piece number 4. This is the peplum back, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. If you're doing view C, this is pattern piece number 4. This is the dress back, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. Remember, you use this cut line for view A and B. Next up is pattern piece number 5. This is the front facing, and you're going to cut 1 on the fold and 1 of the fold of interfacing. Pattern piece number 6. This is the back facing, and you're going to cut 2 of the fabric and 2 of the interfacing. Next up is pattern piece number 7. This is the sleeve front, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. Use this cut line for view A and C, and use this section for view B. You're also going to need pattern piece number 8. This is the sleeve back, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. Use this cut line for view A and C, and then use this section for view B. This is pattern piece number 9. This is the pocket. You're going to cut 4 of fabric, and you're only doing this if you are doing view C. This is pattern piece number 10, the buttonhole guide. You are only going to use this piece for the functional buttons option. This is pattern piece number 11, the button guide. You're only going to use this for the functional buttons option. Okay, so now go ahead and cut out your pieces and let's get started. All right, first you're going to stay stitch the neck edge of the bodice front as well as the bodice back. So once you're done that, you're going to go ahead and flip over your bodice front, and you're going to pin the darts. Once you're done pinning, you're going to go ahead and stitch from the raw edge up into the point. When stitching a dart, you always want to start from the raw edge, and you're going to follow the line up until you get to about 1 inch away from the end point. Once you get to that point, you're going to curve your needle in. You can also adjust to move your fabric, and then you're going to sew along the edge of the fold. This helps to avoid puckering at the tip. Once you get to the point, do not backstitch. You can go ahead and pull out some thread, and you're going to go ahead and tie a knot. Look at that beautiful dart. You want to make sure that you press the dart down. I serged mine down as well as pressed it just to make sure that it is flat. This fabric is just a slight bit thicker than my normal fabrics. With right sides together, you're going to go ahead and pin the bodice front to the bodice back at the shoulders and the sides, matching the notches. So now go ahead and stitch those pieces together. Okay, so now this is what it should look like. Make sure you're pressing your seams open as well. Let's put this aside, and now we're going to take our front and back facings. You should have already interfaced your front and back facings. And now you're going to go ahead and pin those together, matching notches, and then stitch them together. This is what it should look like. You can go ahead and finish your raw edges as well. I serged my raw edges, but you can also use a zigzag stitch. Okay, so now you're going to grab your bodice and with right sides together, you're going to stitch the facing to the neck edge of the bodice, matching the notches. Make sure you're clipping any curves. And again, you're just going to stitch from one end to the other of the neck edge. Once you're done stitching those together, you're going to bring the seam towards the facing and you're going to understitch the facing. It's also a good idea to stitch the facings to the shoulder seams just to hold it in place. And here is the understitching of the facing. If you're making view A and B, you do not need pockets, so you can just grab the peplum front and back. And with right sides facing, you're going to attach the peplum front and the peplum back together at the notches. And just a reminder, always make sure that you mark your notches. All right, go ahead and stitch that together and then press your seams open. So now we're going to attach the peplum to the bodice at the notches and the seams. All right, go ahead and stitch those together. Make sure you press your seams open. Whenever I have a long stretch of fabric to sew, I usually like to start at the center and work my way towards the end. We are done the major part, and so we are looking up from here. Okay, so go ahead and grab your zipper. I'm using an invisible zipper, but these instructions will also work for a regular zipper. Open up the zipper so that the zipper teeth is facing the opposite side of the zipper line. Make sure you already made your line, and then you're going to pin the zipper to the seam. So I went ahead and pinned the other side of the zipper to the other side of the garment. In the instruction manual, you'll notice that you are supposed to also mark a line. You can also mark the line at the end after you've pinned your zipper and then readjust your zipper if needed. There are different ways that you can also apply a zipper. This is just one way. Feel free to use the way that you are most comfortable with. So here is the invisible zipper foot from my sewing machine. You will have to check your sewing machine for the type of zipper foot that you need. And I'm going to go ahead and sew in my zipper. When you are done sewing your zipper in, don't forget to seal it at the back. So with the extra tape on top, you can do two things. You can either cut it off or you can go ahead and fold it over and stitch on top of the fabric right there so you won't see it. It's sleeve time. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to let you see the different sleeves. So you'll notice that the sleeve front is a lot larger than the sleeve back, and it will be overlapping over the sleeve back. Okay, so now you're going to place your sleeve front and sleeve back right sides together. This is going to be on the opposite side of where the shoulders are and the interfaced side. So go ahead and stitch those together. Once you are done that, make sure you have interfaced the side where the shoulders are. So far, it should look like a butterfly. Make sure you also press your seams open, but because my fabric is a little thicker, you can't really tell because it's so thick, it's not laying flat. But that's okay, because the next step will help us lay it flat. So you're going to first fold the bottom raw edges of the sleeve inward about 1/2 inch. And you may want to press it to create a fold. Again, my fabric is a little thicker, so it's going to be hard to make that fold. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it. And once I'm done pinning, I'm just going to go ahead and baste it down. If your fabric has no problem folding, you do not have to baste it down, but it is a good idea. Now fold the raw edge of the button placket on the interfacing by 1/2 inch. And you're not going to stitch it together. Instead, on the interfaced ends of the sleeve, you're going to fold back the panel 1 inch and stitch 1/2 inch away from the bottom edge. Okay, so now you're going to fold it back so that the panels are now facing outwards. Depending on the type of fabric you use, you may have to recreate the folds that you originally had, but that shouldn't be a problem if you stitched at the bottom on the right place. Pinning here is important so that your fabric doesn't move when you sew. Stitch along the bottom of the hemline about 1/2 an inch away from the folded edge, and then you're also going to go ahead and stitch all the way down the bottom placket about 1/8 of an inch away from the inner fold. Make sure the gathering points are marked on the sleeve, and then you're going to gather the top of each side of the sleeve shoulder. You can use a gathering foot or you can use a very long stitch. You want to definitely do 2 lines, and so you're going to pull the strings and that will help gather it. Make sure you're not back stitching either, because if you back stitch, you will not be able to pull the strings. If you're doing the non-functional buttons, which are just the buttons in place, you want to take the sleeve front and place it on top of the sleeve back button placket. Base stitch the top of the placket to keep them in place. If you haven't already, this is a good time to place your markings for where your buttons are going to be. For the buttons that I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and hand stitch it right in place. And this again is for the non-functional buttons, which means that I do not have buttonholes. We are almost done. Go ahead and match the notches, and you're going to pin the sleeves to the armhole, making sure the shoulder seams are lined up with the seams of the opposite side of the placket opening. So go ahead and stitch that together. We are at the finish line, you guys. All that is left is hemming the bottom of the peplum or dress. All right, so to hem the bottom of the peplum, first you're going to base stitch 3/8 of an inch away from the raw edge. What I like to do is just pull on the strings a little bit just so they gather. You don't want it to be like full gather, but you want it to be a good gather so that it curves a little bit onto the inside. And then you're going to fold the edge and press at the base stitch line all the way around. All right, so I've done my first stitch around the peplum. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold the edge again so that the base stitch is at the top of the fold. You will need to do a lot of pinning here, and that's okay, but make sure as you're doing it, you are also pressing. Go ahead and stitch it, and once you are done stitching it together, you can pull out the basting stitch from the previous fold. If you would like to use a different hem option, you can refer to page 32 and you can use the horsehair trim, aka the crinoline. The only thing left to do is to do a top stitch on both sides of the zipper. Other than that, you are done. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to tag Dwana Studio in your makes. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more sew-alongs like this.